Hi, I'm Professor Ritchey, and in this video we're going to take the structural functionalist framework of identifying all of the different tasks a society needs to do to survive, and we're going to see how we can use this to do a cultural comparison between societies. Now, we discovered that society has certain needs that must be met for survival. Groups and organizations operate to socialize the member of the society into the acceptable ways to meet the needs of society. Our cultural patterns. We all belong to groups and organizations. We are given statuses or positions within each of these groups and organizations. And there is a set of societal defined behavioral expectations or roles for people who occupy specific statuses. This includes the expected messages about how to complete societal tasks. So we can see that all cultures, all societies have the same functional needs. All societies have the same agents of socialization. And all societies are structured by the positions or the statuses within the groups and organizations. And all societies have the same statuses. What varies across cultures are the roles associated with specific statuses. And let's take just a quick look at the role of, or the status of, consumer and what we expect consumer to be like given a particular society. So we can observe consumers in every single society, but how consumers behave can differ. In many cultures like Asian, Latino, Middle Eastern, it is common to practice to bargain for goods and services. In these cultures, there is a focus on the development of relationships between buyer and seller, and the bargaining process is part of the relationship that is dictated by the societal roles associated with the status of buyer and seller. In the United States, it's customary to pay a set price determined by a corporation. Our consumer transactions are more mechanical, task-oriented, and not oriented towards relationship development. If we continue to chart all the statuses and roles and messages associated with the 20 functional needs or societal needs, we would have a very decent cultural guidebook. The key here is that our messages become accepted or the right way to meet particular societal needs. When this occurs, sociologists say that the messages become institutionalized. For example, it's been long recognized that there are pay inequalities between men and women in the United States. Most would agree that this cultural practice should not exist, but the pattern continues to exist because it has become institutionalized. It is expected and accepted. Some suggest that this is partly due to the socialization process of females, where cooperation and harmony is emphasized and there is less emphasis on negotiating skills. If you want to chart the cultural patterns of a country, we can organize it according to the functions. So let's look at some of the areas that we can explore that are useful in cross-cultural comparisons for each functional need. For each task, we can ask, what is the task, the function? 2, where is the task completed? What groups and organizations are completing the task? 3, who are responsible for the task? What statuses are involved? And how is the task completed, which would be the roles? So let's just quickly go through all of these 20 functional areas or tasks and see some of the things that we could look at to compare with different cultures. We look at regulating sexual behavior. We can look at dating rituals, mate selection criteria, coming of age rituals, clothing and fashion norms. We can also look at the replacement of members through reproduction and immigration. What are the population policies? What are the marital arrangements? Do they have monogamous or polygamous? What is the immigration policies? Who's allowed in the country? Who isn't allowed in the country? The socialization. We can look at child rearing practices and family authoritative practices. We can look at children toys and games and songs and stories. What are the children being told? Care and protection of the vulnerable citizens, our healthcare, our child care system, our social welfare systems would all be involved in these cultural messages for this task. We can look at fixing social placement and establish class, caste, slavery systems, stratification systems. What statuses are more highly valued by a society? We will look at this again in an upcoming video and look at some comparisons here. Economic security. What is our living arrangements? What are our inheritance rules? Do we have arranged marriages? What are our banking practices? How are we prepared for our occupational roles? What type of education system is available? Is it like we have in the United States, or is it maybe more based on apprenticeships? What occupational statuses are more highly valued? Okay, we'll look a little bit at that as well. Transmitting the cultural heritage. What are the types of holidays? What's being communicated in the museums, the statues? What are the cultural events available to people, and does that vary depending on who you are? What types of rituals can we see within the country, and what's their folklore? It acquaints us and prepares us for various statuses and roles in societies. We have to prepare people with that. And we do this a lot of times through children toys, our books, our movies, our television, our music, our education system. All of those things help prepare us to occupy particular statuses and the expectations associated with those statuses. Do we promote change through scientific research? Or are we more stuck in more traditional ways of living? The universities, government, what type of scientific research is being encouraged, and what is the goal of that research? How do we explain the social and physical world to our citizens? And we generally do this through our religious and scientific writings. It would be helpful to know the dominant religious organizations. What are the dominant religious doctrines that inform the culture and the society, and how frequently are scientific explanations offered and accepted. We also need to be able to create group cohesion and solidarity. We have to have ethnic nationalism, religious ethnicity groupings. We have civic nationalism, which is a respect of cultural patterns and norms regardless. Patriotism with our flags and national anthems. We have rituals and traditions, birth, death, marriage, coming of age. We have national holidays, and we also have group affiliations. The 13th task is, how do we produce goods and services? What does the society produce? What do they import? What do they export? How are production tasks completed? Are they industrialized, agrarian, horticultural? Who's producing the goods and services? And how do we make certain people are producing? What are the valuable resources in a society? Is there money, gold, food, power? And what happens when someone can't produce? How do we distribute the goods and services throughout people in our society? How do consumers get these goods and services? What is the exchange mechanism? Is it trade, barter, monetary? Who has access to what resources? Who has access to alcoholic beverages? And what basic needs are granted to citizens in terms of food, shelter, healthcare, education? And how do we consume these goods and services? What products are in higher or lower demand? What are the status products and services? And how satisfied are citizens with the products and services available? We also need to make laws, and laws are norms that are expected, and they're formal norms, so we can be punished for them. And we want to ask, well, how are the laws passed within societies? How are they changed? What is the power structure of the society? Is it a monarchy, or is it more of a democratic society? Who makes the decisions about the welfare of society? We also have to make certain society has to also establish services such as education, healthcare, childcare, welfare. What are the basic rights that are recognized for the citizens? What services are available to make certain that these rights are met? Who provides the services? The government, missionary groups, foreign aid, What types of services are being provided? How easy or difficult is it to receive those services? Who's deserving? And what human rights violations have been identified? The United Nations has a great website that tracks human rights violations by country. Society also has to be able to enforce the laws that it has determined were the laws. So what do we use? What social control mechanisms are used to enforce the laws? Violence, punishment, shame, guilt? What's considered a crime, or what's considered deviant behavior or taboo? What groups and organizations are responsible for the enforcement of the laws? And what groups and organizations are benefiting from the law? We also have to make certain that we can resolve conflict within and between our societal members. What are the elements of the judicial system, and how is conflict resolved between individuals? And we have to be able to protect our citizens against internal and external threats. What types of people, products, or ideas, religious or political, are not allowed free access? What are the laws within your own state currently that's trying to restrict free access to ideas or products? What is the relationship to other countries? What are our foreign relations? Who are our allies and enemies? And what strategies are used to protect citizens from threats, both foreign and domestic enemies? So these are some of the things that we can be looking at as we do our cultural comparisons. And as we go on, we're going to continue to dig deeper into some of these ideas. But this gives you a framework to understand that we do have a common structures. All societies share similar structures, but what's varying within them are the key little elements, how we're completing the task for our society and for our groups. Okay, now the next thing we're going to be looking at are the components of culture, getting a little bit more deeper into actually these cultural messages that we've been talking about.